Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, and specifically the Arsenal News Show. Joining you this morning, the day before match day's eve, as we like to discuss and call it these days. Hope you're doing good, hope you're doing well and surviving. It's Friday, you've made it, it's the end of the week. Weekend is upon us. For you, for me, the weekend has started. I've got today and tomorrow off, got a wedding today, not my own, before any confusion. Mine's a little bit later on in the year. But it's going to be a great day. Looking forward to it very much so. And it does mean that there will be no show tomorrow morning, as you can probably understand. So no show tomorrow morning. Unfortunately, there may not be a show on Monday. I'll keep you updated on that. But I may be in the office on Monday for Football.London. So there may not be a show on Monday either. I will try. If it turns out I feel fine tomorrow, I might get out of bed to be able to do it, but there's a strong chance, considering I'm at a wedding today, that there might not be a show tomorrow morning. Which, going to be honest, we're going to put out there. We've seen Tom do a hangover show, and it's not good. Like, TC in the mornings after a day of drinking is not good. There's probably not going to be a show tomorrow, but who knows? Maybe there'll be a surprise. But there probably definitely won't be one on Monday. So apologies for that. It's a couple of days of issues, but there will be coverage of the game. I'll be doing a reaction show tomorrow after the Brighton game. I'm not working tomorrow, so I'll be able to do one on the whistle, which is not something we get to do that much anymore. We used to do it all the time, but because of the new job, I've not been able to. But tomorrow, we'll be able to do a reaction show on the whistle, so make sure you join me for that. Good morning to Matt G in the chat box, to Damien, to Olu, to Martin, to Steve, to Peony Ween as well, to Gooner0411. Gooner, boy, good morning to you. SH, good morning to you. Daniel, Jose, Marcus, Answer, good morning, guys. Ed, Tony, Cole, Bo, Paul, Stevie, Viraj, Simon, good morning, guys. Daniel, Julian, too. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing good and well. I've left a question for you guys and a poll in the chat box. We're going to get to that and more a little bit later on in the show. Without further ado, let's crack on with things. We kick off by telling you, as always, to go and subscribe to The Arsenal Way. Live at 10 a.m, Bailey and Chris will be there for all of your Arsenal needs. Make sure you give them a plenty of support this morning, as I know that you always do. Thank you so much for continuing to support the channel. And our thank you messages this morning. Thank you to Ace, to Drew, to Vinny, to Exshell, and to P. Goddard as well. Thank you for the kind comments. We like to highlight these positive comments on the shows as much as we can, because it's good to bring a bit of positivity into our lives, so focusing on the negatives. Let's move on to today's stories by first telling you, of course, to go and check out our preview show, looking ahead to the game against Brighton. It was a fantastic show, joined by Bobby and Simon and Moss yesterday. Really good discussion about the Partey injury and more. And speaking of the Partey injury, that is where we start. Yesterday, it was confirmed that Mikel Arteta will be without Thomas Partey for at least a couple of weeks minimum, possibly even up to a month, maybe even more. He has suffered a repeat of that injury that he injured against Spurs in the North London derby last season. Same place, could be a similar severity. We're going to have to wait and see. It could be really, really detrimental to our season. Our best player this year, in my opinion, without a shadow of a doubt, in 2022. Losing him is a giant blow and a massive opportunity, therefore, for Sambi Lokonga, you would imagine, to come in and take that spot. Our next story is that Brooke Norton-Cuffy is certainly drawing plenty of attention. My colleague Chris Wheatley reporting yesterday that championship sides are inquiring about the possibility of signing Brooke Norton-Cuffy. I would imagine that Nottingham Forest would be one of those teams. Jed Spence will return to Middlesbrough, where he will either stay or move on somewhere else. I imagine that he would fit that role quite nicely that's been vacated by Jed Spence once he moves on. So watch that space. But I imagine there's a number of other teams that as well are looking at the young 18-year-old fullback. Moving forwards, Real Betis are set to hold talks with Arsenal about a permanent deal for Hector Bellerin. He has just a year left on his deal at the end of this season. He's done well playing in that right-back spot for Real Betis, and it is expected that talks will undergo the due processes in a number of weeks' time to determine how much, when, if it happens. Hopefully Arsenal get a decent figure for Bellerin. They're certainly worthy of getting a decent figure, especially after this season has raised his price back up. Another good decision to loan him out and make sure he gets maximum value on that. And our penultimate story of the day is on Victor Osimhen. Not particularly positive, however, unfortunately. The Nigerian striker has, according to Italian media, let his representatives know that he would turn down a move to Arsenal in favour of one to Manchester United instead. It wasn't depicted whether or not it's dependent upon Champions League football, but that is the report coming out from Italy. Never wanted him. I don't care. I don't care. If you want to go Man United, mate, you can go Man United. If you want to join that circus, that's you do you. You do you. But, I think moving to Arsenal will be a much, much better move for yourself. But if you want to go there, that's your decision. It's the most diplomatic way I can put that. And our final story today, Kylian Mbappe. Not a player I expected to talk too much about on the show, but he's a player that seemingly will move nowhere in the summer and will be staying with PSG. Now, you may wonder why on earth would we discuss this story on an Arsenal news show? And there is a very, very good reason for that. Because Real Madrid would be looking for a striker to replace the aging Karim Benzema, who has a year left on his contract. So therefore, they'll be looking to replace him, and they were looking to replace him with Kylian Mbappe. If Mbappe is remaining at PSG, it means that Real Madrid entered the striker market and could compete with Arsenal for a number of their targets. We know that we've been linked to some of the top considered strikers in Europe right now, the likes of Lautaro Martinez, the likes of Jonathan David, Darwin Nunez. And if Real Madrid are now in the hunt, it is only going to make Arsenal's job to find a striker that much more difficult. So a frustrating one. We probably would rather see Mbappe move. That being said, if he did move, PSG would be in the market, therefore, for another striker. So it swings and roundabouts, I suppose, and one of those two teams is going to be entering the market for a striker, dependent upon where Mbappe ends up playing his football next season. But I think I'd rather see it be PSG than Real Madrid entering the striker market to compete with Arsenal for a number of forwards. So there you go. And the final topic of discussion relates to our poll in the chat box. What I want to try and do is create a bit of discussion before we go to the Q&A section and get a lot of your thoughts about a certain topic. And so this is ultimately where we kick off our poll, which I've put into the chat box this morning. The question is, would you understand missing top four after Tommy, Tierney and Partey's injuries, or should we still be expected to make it? So far, 64% of people saying that you would understand missing out on top four because of the injuries. 37% just gone up slightly. No, that's not a reason to miss top four. And I want to get a lot of your thoughts and your explanations to why you picked what you did pick in that poll in the chat box. And we'll be discussing that just after this quick break. Okay, so let's see why you picked what you picked in the chat box for that poll. Most says, Most joining us. What time is it in the morning, Most? That's ridiculous. I can understand, but at the moment, I think we can still do it and should. I love the positivity, mate. It's definitely the way that we should be thinking. And I'm hoping, of course, as well, that we are going to try and get there as much as we can, even with these obstacles. Priyank says, Tom, if we didn't finish top four, I will blame Arteta, the manager, not Arteta, the coach. Unless we bottle top four, I can accept 2 L's and 1 draw in the remaining games. Harvey says, Arsenal are no longer interested in signing Dominic Calvert-Lewin, according to the Telegraph. Yeah, we did cover that before the Telegraph even reported it. We covered it a couple of weeks ago that we'd called our interest, so that's not surprising. James says, no, the squad is light by design. Reese says, young team, plenty of time to get better. Mogos says, the coaching staff believe that Sambi is better suited for the Partey role. Let's hope that's true. James asking, when you say understand, do you also mean understanding why they didn't sign someone in January? No, I'm not saying that at all. And if we get to the end of the season, that is certainly going to be a point of contention. I understand why we won't get top four, but one of the reasons why I understand will be because we did not act upon that in the January transfer window. And I will certainly be the first to criticise, as I was in January, why we didn't bring in a striker to replace Lacazette. That being said, a midfielder was not at the top of priorities in January because we've got Sambi Lokonga, we've got Mohamed El Neni to come through. And Artur was really the only midfielder that we were being linked to during that period of time. And we weren't certainly being linked to a left back or a right back during that period. So those two losses weren't particularly expected, to be honest. And when they did hit, it's been a big, big blow to us, to be fair. Tom says, who are the best forwards playing for teams that will most likely miss out on the Champions League, Europa League next season? Any gems we can grab? Oh, that's a good question. Vlahovic could miss out on Champions League football next season, playing for Juventus, maybe. Trying to think of anyone else. Dominic Calvert-Lewin you think of, but we're calling our interest on him. I'm going to quick check of the Liga table. Lille are currently outside of that, 7th place. So you imagine that Jonathan David would miss out on that as well. Monaco also missing out. So there's a few players in other positions like Badiashile, for instance, that maybe you could go for as well. Lyon being out of things. Moussa Dembele, anyone? Not for me, that's for sure. Edrissas says, more than ever, we need Tottenham to do what they do best and bottle top 4. John says, I understand, but I think we can do it. So conflicted what to pick. I believe. Paul says, I would not understand missing top 4 because we could and should have strengthened in January, so I can't accept this. Angela says, the fact that we are where we are with 1 goal from Lacazette this calendar year is a miracle already, let alone the injuries. Schrodinger's Catflap says, all is lost. We're doomed. Moss says, had some what? And passed out after supper in a brilliant Raptors. Well, I don't even know what that is, boss, to be honest. Vinny says, top 4 was always a dream this season. The fact that we are thereabouts is incredible. Target was to get back into Europa minimum, so he has achieved that. Well, let's see. Let's not say we've even got that yet. So he has achieved that target. I believe we have the players to do it. Matt Thornton says, time for the squad players to really step up. James says, if you took 3 of the best players from any team, bar City and Liverpool, any team would struggle. Matt G says, I would understand. I said we should still get it because Tommy has been injured for some time and we were still talking about getting top 4. Madupe says, I understand, but we should still be making top 4 because we chose not to strengthen in January. Bobby says, I would be blaming the way Arsenal has run for the last decade as we don't have the squad to cover these injuries. It's mad, isn't it, considering the fact we signed 6 players in the summer transfer window. We let go of a fair few, and that has to be reminded. We have to be reminded of that. But the players that we did let go of, there were certainly reasons behind why we let those players go. A lot of the reasons being they weren't good enough. Aubameyang's the only one that you would say out of the bunch that certainly has world-class potential, and he's showing that at Barca, but we all know that the stories that went behind the scenes by now. But the rest of them that moved on, they weren't good enough. So we'll see. Josh, will you be watching the possible title decider on Sunday? And who do you think will win? I probably will be. I'm working, so I'll have it on in the background at least. I think that Liverpool will get it. I think that Liverpool are going to win it. I think Liverpool are going to win the title, is my opinion. AFC West Mid says, Tom, I don't think it should differ. The position we aim to achieve. One simple fact, we all wanted signings. Arteta said we didn't need them. So now don't let it affect our aim. Did he say we didn't need them? I mean, fair play if he did, but I don't remember that being said. Send me the quotes if you can. I know that they talked about saying they only wanted the best. They only wanted players that would definitely improve us. I remember that being said, and they felt like they couldn't find those players, which I accept, but I don't accept knowing that maybe there was players out there that we could have signed to bring in. I wouldn't have gone for Alexander Isak, by the way. I do disagree with my good friend Dan Potts on that one. I wouldn't have spent £75 million on him because he might not necessarily been the perfect striker for us in the summer, and then you've already committed to him in this part of the season. Sorry. Ollie says, I picked yes. Top 4 was not a target at the beginning of the season. Liverpool dropped off last season with their best players were missing. It's a good point. Reggie, the real test now is how Arteta adjusts the team to try and remain competitive. If he can keep them competing, but they lose some, then I'm okay with it. Roma says, hey, Tom, over from the Spotify. Thank you for tuning in on Spotify. I'm sure that those shows are still going out on Spotify. I know that we've switched over to Acast. So if they've not been going out, someone could let me know. That would be great because I've been trying to make sure that they're still going out over on Spotify. So I'm hoping that they are. I'm just checking. Did yesterday's show go out? It looks like it did. So, yeah, thank you for tuning in. And, yeah, as I say, these do go out on like iTunes and Spotify. If you could leave us a nice review, it really does help boost us up the algorithms and stuff. So thank you so much for tuning in on the audio-only platforms. Now you get to see the face made for radio. Yurix Prince says, Europa League has been good for us for player development, but not good for us in terms of progression of the club. That's what we have to say. Alpha says, I picked no because this is where your mettle as a manager is tested. Ranieri, the Tinkerman, won the league. He's just got to make calculated decisions and go for strength over limiting weakness. I mean, didn't Leicester manage to keep pretty much their entire team fit throughout the entire season, to be fair? So I would cite that as a possible reason why they also were able to do it. Jay says, I wouldn't be upset as such. The way I see it, we are moving forward and I trust our procurement, good word, of players. So I'm confident we will be fine next season. We do require more depth in the squad. Peony Ween says, aren't we waiting for top players, hence why we didn't sign anyone? Yes, that's where my head's at regarding this one. Daniel says, I said earlier at the start of the season, we weren't predicted to get top 4. We are overachieving. The squad ain't ready yet for Champions League. Tasserd says, we should have kept M8 to cover left back and EB and centre mid. EB, what's EB? Is that centre back? Maybe it is. That would have covered all of the injuries. Is M8 you're talking about Maitland-Niles? I think that you might be, unless I'm thinking of it being someone else and it's just gone over my head, but possibly so. Maitland-Niles was one we could have kept. That being said, he's gone to Roma and utterly been, Mourinho is not for Maitland-Niles at all, and he will return in the summer. Ritzian says, I would understand and would 100% back the playing and coaching 11 to get us into the Champions League by next season. Dreaming of finishing in the top 4, though. Fingers crossed. Amira says, I can understand it, but it doesn't mean I won't be disappointed. Hey, I'm not telling you not to be disappointed, and I will be hugely disappointed. It is ours to lose. We still support this team 100%, though. They're clearly building something for the future. Lars says, to be fair, a striker in January wouldn't help our injured fullbacks. That's the point that's certainly being raised, and it certainly wouldn't help with Partey. A midfielder would, but the only one we were in for is Artur at the time, and Juventus weren't accepting of where we wanted to go with it. I didn't call you Dom, but thanks, Dom. Sorry, Dom. Marcus says, so where do you think the top strikers will be after the summer? And who do you think we will get? Oh, it's a really tough question, Marcus. Really tough. I think that Paulo Dybala is going to end up at Juventus at Inter Milan, as will... there's someone else that's going to go Juve too. Its names escape me. Lautaro Martinez, I think there's a chance he could move somewhere like Atletico Madrid. Ralph Ellitz could then move somewhere else as well. Jonathan David's an interesting one. There's a chance he could end up at somewhere like Liverpool. I think he fits that Firmino role really quite well, and he could be a long-term replacement for him. If not, who knows? Could be us. Darwin Nunez is being linked to us and Manchester United. Who knows what might happen with him? Chelsea, are they going to go for a striker, considering what's going on with Lukaku and Werner? It would be mad if they did. They've spent 150 million on strikers. Will they go anywhere else? We'll have to wait and see. Man United also linked with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, so who knows? He could end up there. I have a feeling that Calvert-Lewin will end up at West Ham. That's kind of my prediction on that one. We'll see. Olu says, hey, Tom, I understand every team will struggle with key injuries. Liverpool's expectations dropped last season due to key injuries. City also 2 years back. Priyank says, yesterday I scouted Gakpo, who now I've learned is not pronounced Gakpo. It's pronounced Gakpo. This is what they were saying on the commentaries. But I know it's a lot easier to say Gakpo, but I can't really do the sound. I'm doing ASMR now for TGT. The Gakpo noise. It's a bit... I feel sorry for the commentators of the league. I'm going to have to get all phlegmy when they pronounce Gakpo's name. But yeah, I was impressed. Madueke, Madueke is a very talented youngster who's actually an England youth international, but has already spoken in the past about playing for the Netherlands in the future. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Matthew says, Tom, Lucas Torreira is one that, if true, he was committed to reintegrating. I wonder what might have been. Thoughts? Yeah, look, he was just not a player that they were up for keeping. I'm not surprised. Remember all the stories in the summer? I know that he went through something horrible, but he really did tank his value with the comments that he came out with, and he was demanding to leave Arsenal at one stage, and he said he wanted to go back to Uruguay. So it was a very, very difficult situation. So I don't think we can point to the Torreira deal, to be honest, as one that was a regret because of the situation. It was such a difficult one to manage, and I think ultimately it was the right thing for him to move on from the club. I am just frustrated that we didn't sign that midfielder in the summer. That's the one position I look at, central midfield, that we didn't sign at all. Tammy Abraham Isaac Tuchemeni. I mean, Tuchemeni is a midfielder, of course, answer. I think he'll probably end up somewhere like Chelsea to replace Kante. Tammy Abraham, I think, will stay with Roma for now. I think that Roma can demand a ridiculous fee that no one will pay. Isaac, I'm not sure. Maybe Liverpool, maybe somewhere else. Morgie says, sorry, Lacquer, for all your worth. We need a goal scorer and centre forward. For me, Eddie, I crave a good old-fashioned centre forward who engage the opposition in the goal area, a presence. Look, I don't think Eddie's the answer. I would choose Martinelli or Pepe over him. I'm just not for Eddie right now at all. Like, we started Eddie in a number of games this season. We started him and he just didn't... It just didn't happen. I remember we started him last season as well in games. It didn't happen. We've started him in. We've given him plenty of opportunities. Coming off the bench, he's just not given enough. He's at the post a couple of times from speculative efforts, but I don't see enough. I really don't see enough from him. How are you feeling now about Bruno G? The same as I felt in the January Virage, is that he's a midfielder we should have signed. We should have signed him. He's not playing right now because Eddie Howe certainly feels that Shelvey and Joe Linton, for some reason, are the ones to go for in midfield and just keep moving on, gradually integrate Guimaraes while he's got the comfortability, now not in a relegation battle, to do it. But yeah, he's a brilliant midfielder and we should have signed him. Let's have a look. Axe says, I'll understand, but to see Spurs possibly get will hurt. Yeah, it will hurt. It was interesting. I was looking back at the table when Antonio Conte took over, and when Conte took over Spurs were 2 points behind Arsenal at that point. I felt like it was more. I don't know why, but I remember obviously we lost the first 3 games of the season, and that really did dent our where we were at. And yeah, so when Conte took over, he was 2 points behind us with the same amount of 10 games played. We'd played 10 Premier League games by that point, and now we're on level points and we've got a game in hand. If we were to win that game in hand, we'd still be 1 point better off compared to Spurs than when Conte took over, which when you think about it is a bit strange. Like, people talk about the work that Conte's done at Spurs since taking over. But say we win that game in hand, you know, we'd still be 1 point ahead of them, which would be really... we'd be 3 points ahead and 1 point ahead of where we were when he took over Spurs, which is really interesting. Really interesting. But now, you know, we've had these huge hits, these massive, massive hits to the team with Partey and Tierney and Tomiyasu being out for so long, and Lacazette's just not scoring. So, look, we'll see. But it's a really strange situation with that when you look at the points comparisons when Conte took over. Neil says, Arteta said he had a solution. It is peak time to show solution. I'm sure that solution probably included Tomiyasu, Partey and Tierney, to be honest, Neil. Cass said, to come to tell you the truth, I wasn't expecting a top 4 finish this season. Just getting back into the Europa League, I would have taken this season. Would love Champions League, but if not, I ain't having a meltdown. Daz says, will there ever be a time where we are relaxed about who Arsenal sign, as we are already comfortably in a title race? One day, Daz, I really hope that is the case. And that's why I'm still very much on board with what we're seeing right now, is because I feel like that's what we're building towards. Some people don't necessarily see enough evidence of that yet. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. I respect it. But for me, I just have seen enough. I've seen so much change behind the scenes. And whilst it may not be reflected yet in the league position, although when you compare this season to last and the one before, you know, it is drastically different. I see enough that's changing. I see enough of the foundation that's being built. And to be honest, if we had, say, someone come in that had got us into top 4 for a couple of seasons and then we fell away because it was all about getting results immediately, you know, I'm not sure that would have been the best thing for the club's long-term future. I'd rather be established in the top 4, and that just might take a bit more time to build up to. But the fact that we did what we've done this season is great. People talk about, but Chelsea are going to improve, Man United are going to improve, Spurs are going to improve. Man United were billed as title challengers this season. Chelsea were billed as title challengers this season. We could have gone 2 points behind them had we beaten Palace. Like, there's always going to be these thoughts about, look, everyone's going to get better next season. It's going to be even harder next season. But we say that every year. That's football. It happens. And that's why I get so frustrated when, you know, people really kind of discredit what we've done this season by saying, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for Man United underachieving, or Spurs underachieving, or Chelsea doing whatever they're doing, or West Ham having Europa League football, or us not having European football. No, we've got where we are because of our own merit this season. We're on for funny thing is, we're on for a predicted points total that matches that of plenty of sides that have got top four in previous seasons. So it's not like, we've had to rely on other teams falling away. We're on for a points tally that would put us alongside other teams that have got top four in many previous years. So that discounts that almost immediately. It's just really strange. It's really strange how there's this expectation that, everyone's going to be better. Everyone's going to be great next season. And in reality, that's not always the case at all. Madupa says, Tom, you honestly believe we can make top four next season if we don't make Champions League? To be honest, I don't think we will. A door is open now. We should really take... Look, the thing is when you say, Madupe, that we should really take advantage, it's almost like you're saying that we're not trying to. It's almost like there's this admittance that if we don't get top four, it's because we didn't try to get it, or that there are excuses for not getting it. And that's not the case. The squad is doing everything it can to try and get into the top four, to win as many games as it can. And sometimes throughout a season, you're going to have off games like we had against Crystal Palace. But things out of our control, like injuries, is frustrating. The things that are in our control, like, the fact that we should have signed someone in January, is certainly something that we look back on. But if the reason why that they didn't sign anyone is because they said that they wanted to sign players that they felt took them forwards, and that there was no one there that they could sign that they felt wouldn't take us forwards, as an explanation for why you didn't do a transfer over, say, we couldn't afford it, or we're happy with what we've got, I wouldn't have accepted those reasons, that we couldn't afford it or that we're happy with what we've got. But the fact that the reason given was that they only will target players that will upgrade or progress us, I have respect for that explanation, but I still question that there were options for us to go for, in my opinion. But it's weird. I find it really odd, the explanation or the suggestion that we're not trying, or that we'll miss out on top four because, we haven't gone for it, or that we haven't taken advantage of this opportunity. We're bloody trying. We really are trying to. So that's it. Charlie, I did see your reply on Twitter. Did you reply to my reply? I probably replied before the show. I've just seen your reply, yeah. So he says, ultimately, if we don't get Europa League either, look, if we don't finish in the top six, there's no excuse for that. I can't excuse that, not finishing in the top six. I can't sit here and say, oh, we're seventh, great. No, that's not how it works. And I've said so many times that if he doesn't finish in the top six, there's nothing to save him. There's nothing that can save him. There's no explanation you can give to keep him if he doesn't finish in the top six, for me. And even if he doesn't finish in the top four, I'm not handing him a new contract. If he doesn't finish top four, I would wait. I would wait for next season to give me more evidence that we are progressing. So if you finish in the top four, there's no question about getting a new contract. Like, there's no argument against him getting a new contract if he finishes in the top four. But if he doesn't finish in the top four, I would wait. And that's why I think it's not so binary between success and failure, because there's this middle ground for me. Failure is not getting into Europe. And by not getting into Europe, I also include the Conference League, because that's not Europe. So failure is not top six. Success is top four this season in the context of what we want to achieve and moving forwards. But there's this middle ground for me, which is fifth and sixth place, which is a bit of a buffer, I don't want to give you a contract yet because I want to see what we do next season and see that we are progressing. That's that middle ground for me between success and failure, which is arguably what would be defined as disappointment this season. Failure is seventh and below. Disappointment is fifth and sixth for me because of the opportunity that we've had. Success for me this season specifically is a top four finish. That's where my head's at. King says, aren't we in year three? Look, this point comes up all the time. We're in can't really describe it as year three because the first year he took over, he took us over in the bottom half of the table. We were starting from, behind the starting line, if you like. So it's different. But what I would say is that it's year three where you've had everything that's gone before, and that to turn this Arsenal team around from where it was is going to take time. I know that's not what people want to hear, and it's a really hard thing to accept. I've accepted it. It's a really hard thing for people to accept. And it's not going, oh, look at what happened after Emery's second year, or look what happened after this manager at this club, or look what Tuchel done at Chelsea, etc. It's so different, because if we really want to change Arsenal, if we really want to get it out of the doldrums that it experienced at the end of the Arsene Wenger era and into the Emery era as well, then it's going to take some massive changes, and they don't happen in 2.5 years alone. You've got to stick with it. And next season, the third full season, for me, that's the evidence to tell me whether or not we should progress with Arteta or not. It's next season. And if we finish top 4 this year, then wow. That's a mad achievement considering the context of where we are at on our journey. But if we finish in the 5th or 6th, for me, it's a disappointment. If we finish below 6th, he should go. That's where my head's at. That's just my view, my opinion. I think it's fine. I think it should be fine for all of us that the players gone. They needed to be gone. Absolutely correct. Still, some players need to go. Yeah, I agree. Byron says, morning, Tom. Question, do you think all Arteta's doubters are waiting for games like Palace to feel vindicated about themselves instead of looking at the body of work? There are people that just hate Arteta. That just hate him, that want him to fail, and that the actual want for him to fail is greater than the want for Arsenal to succeed. There's only one question that you need to ask to find out about who these people are. And that's just to ask, do you want Arteta to succeed? And by succeed, turn Arsenal into the team that we all want us to be. And if the answer is no, then you know the answer. So it's a very simple question. Do you want Arteta to succeed? Because if Arteta succeeds, it means Arsenal succeed. Because in my opinion, success for Arteta, as he has defined and has the ownership and as Edu has defined, is getting us back to where we want to be, which is winning titles. And so that is success. That is in the sense of that is Arteta succeeding. This season, contextually, this part of the journey, getting back into top 4, is amazing. That step forward, that leap forward to getting back to where we can start to build and move from there. That's great. But yeah, do I think that they're waiting for games like Palace for a vindication? Yeah, look, being wrong sucks. I've been wrong so many times. I've held my hand up on the channel. It takes a big person to be wrong. I hold your hands up and say you got something wrong. It really does. Because especially when you're putting yourself out there and putting a show in front of thousands of people every day, putting your hands up and saying, I've got that one wrong. It's not a nice feeling. It really isn't. But ultimately, you change your mind, your opinion based upon the evidence that you're given. And if you're so headstrong about, say, a manager that you were not happy about joining and that you wanted him to fail to feel justified, then you're putting yourself and your pride before that of the club that you supposedly love. And, Arsenal's bigger than everything. Arsenal is bigger than absolutely everything. And, that's what being an Arsenal fan is you want the club to succeed. I don't care who the manager is. I don't care who the players are as well. There are some, and it's one of the reasons why I say I wouldn't sign Thomas Soucek, for instance. That's probably given you a bit of a clue as to why it matters sometimes. But it matters to me. Arsenal is above everything. And, I want them to succeed. I don't care who the manager is in regards to, if it's Mikel Arteta, if it was Unai Emery, if it was Arsene Wenger, if it was blooming Jose Mourinho. I wouldn't care as long as Arsenal are back and winning titles again. And if I think that we're on the right path to doing that under the current coach, then I'll sit here and say that. If I think that, we've had enough time and there's not been enough evidence shown to me, then I'll also say that. And there were times after Villarreal, as you guys know, and after Manchester City, where I was at that point, where I felt like it was the right time to move on. So, dearie me. Vinny says small people could admit they are wrong too. Tom, not everyone is 6'3". Hey, if you met me before the Liverpool game, I know there's people in here that were, and Dan Robert definitely can attest to this. I'm not lying. That's how tall I am. I'm not lying at all, mate. So you can try and pull that out as much as you like. Steven says, hi, Tom. The implosion of Palace's result and the subsequent injuries is laughable. Let's see what happens rather than speculating and using that as the truth. Let's have a look at the poll in the chat box and see how many people have voted so far. By the way, it's still less than 100 likes, and there's over 300 of you who have voted on that poll. Please do drop a like on the video. It really, really does help us out. It takes you just a second. If you can't find it, it's in a little drop-down thing under the video. That's how you drop a like on the video. 344 of you have voted. 62% is saying that you would understand. 38% have said no, that's not a reason to miss top 4. Hey, if you ever thought that this community here was one that was always on one end, there's your evidence that it's not. So it's great to see the difference in opinions. I'd love to do more of a phone-in show on this as well, to try to get different opinions and viewpoints. Maybe it's something that we do in a week where there's no midweek game. We'll probably end up doing that. Is there one next week? We might do a phone-in show next week. We'll see what happens in the Brighton result. And there's going to be a few discussions about top 4. I think the Brighton result is going to tell us a lot, actually. It's going to tell us more than I ever thought it would, because I thought it was a bit of a... should have been an easy 3 points. And it still should be. We should still be winning this game. It's not going to be necessarily as easy as I thought it was with the players we're missing, but we should be winning this game. Crusader says, I don't even think it's a disappointment if we take it to the last game and we can miss out. We fell into the trap of having a false advantage when we still have tough games to parlay. To play. Parlay. Karim says, joined the stream late, but have you mentioned how many points we need to get top 4 this season based on previous season's points tallies? Yes, Karim. I've talked about the fact that our predicted points tally is very much on course to be one where teams would finish in the top 4. So, yes, we have talked about that. Number one lover says, why do you think it's so hard for people to understand that when you have a young squad that you are going to have inconsistencies? Look, I don't think it's necessarily that people find it hard. I think it's that there's so much disappointment about Arsenal. There's so much of a pain about where this club has fallen that, people want to see us win it. People want to see us getting back to the top and winning titles. And it's horrible seeing Spurs finish above us as well so many seasons in a row that, I don't blame people for not having patience. I'm never going to be critical of someone not having patience anymore. I used to be like, look, you got to be patient about this. And I still think that, there's an element of saying you do need to have patience. And I think I've said it on this show. But I'm not going to criticize someone for not having patience, because we've been asked to be patient at this club for a long, long time. We've been sold promises that never came true. The Emirates move, etc., and what's happened since then, and the owners that have come in, etc., and everything to do with that. I'm never going to be critical of someone not having patience. What I will be critical, though, is people that want certain individuals to fail because it vindicates a viewpoint. That's what I'll be critical of. That's where my head's at. So there you go. Carl Tom is a giant by height and personality. And Carl has met me. So, it's just, there you go. I'm trying to lose weight though, Carl, I promise. I'm only kidding. Priyank says, Tom, are you worried about tomorrow's game? Of course, I'm worried about every game now, Priyank. I still remember Monreal lying on the floor and Basuma laughing. That time also we battered top 4 against Crystal Palace and Brighton. Big test tomorrow. Absolutely. Ronald says, Woods and Nkunku, Ødegaard and Partey DM work for us. I think that'd be great. I think Nkunku can play further forwards, actually, as well. AFC Till I Die says, top 4 wasn't an expectation at the beginning, so I'd understand that being said. I think we can do it, and Man United are just that. And we all know what the Spursy ones do. They bottle. Yeah. We got to hope, At the moment, it's still in our hands, but we'd have to win all of our games, and even if to be fair, we are reliant, I still think, on obviously those dropping points. I think Spurs will drop points. I hope that Aston Villa pick up their form today. We really, really need them to. Do us a favour, guys. Please do us a favour and get something. I know that we haven't got the best of relationships, Aston Villa, but we could really do with them getting a result against Spurs. Madupe says, Tom, I believe if we hit 74 points, top 4 is guaranteed. I don't think anything's guaranteed these days. We'll wait and see. EKK says, those Arteta haters need to understand that on Arteta's failure is an Arsenal failure, period. And an Arsenal success is an Arteta success. Paul says, I've never wanted the team and manager to succeed more. Let's support them and see game by game how we do. Greg says, young or old squad clubs have inconsistent teams. If they have good owners, managers and players, they should and could be a consistent team. Paul says, I've never wanted the team and managers to succeed. Oh, we've done that one. Number one lover says, who do you think is going down? I really think Everton might go down. Everton, Watford and Norwich, who I think will go down. Matt says, let's just embrace this connection between the team and fans, and it's been a long time coming. Look, I've gone through, and we went through the other day, the amount of things that have improved and changed and changed for the better since Arteta's taken over. It is a long list of things. We now just need that evidence on the table. We need that to be the priority, that to take over, that to be the evidence of these changes having a positive effect on the long-term impacts of the club. That's what we need. That's what we need to see. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. As I said, there's no show tomorrow. Well, I'm pretty sure there's not going to be a show tomorrow morning. I've got a wedding today, not my own, as I've maintained. That's later on this year. Sunday, there will be a show again. We'll be back on Sunday. And there'll be a reaction tomorrow. There will be a reaction show at full time. So make sure that you tune in at full time tomorrow on the channel. We'll be doing a reaction, going through all of your comments and more, as always. And drop a like on the video as well. Do watch our preview show that I was joined by Simon and Bobby yesterday, of course, with Moss to talk all about the Brighton game. So make sure you've watched that too. Drop a like on the video and go and watch the Arsenal Way with Bailey and Chris at 10 a.m. Enjoy your Friday, people. I'll see you tomorrow for the big game. I'd really love a big win, wouldn't you? I think we all would, surely. I mean, all Arsenal fans would anyway. But we want a really big win tomorrow, and a little bit of experimentation would be good as well. I quite want to see what Pepe's got to ask. Come on, get Pepe in the team. Let's see what he can do, and maybe even in a centre forward role. Who knows? Much love, people. See you soon. Have a great day, and as always, up the Arsenal.